Welcome back to another episode on Connie Celica, our 1977 Toyota Celica. We are going to make up some hard lines for the rear brakes, but first we got to solve some problems related to wheel fitment on the rear, which may explain why I'm holding the e-brake cables. Look everybody, it's Ken Wagan. He's back. He's been busy saving lives, working at the ER. And no, he's not a surgeon, although in some Subaru Facebook group they recently declared him a surgeon, and apparently I'm a wealthy businessman, so we're quite a team.
Yep.
So Ken's here to help us with the hard brake lines. He's an expert at bending those up. And you guys have seen me work, so it's best to bring in a professional on these things. But Ken was so excited to see these that we kind of got a little sidetracked, didn't we?
I can't help it. I love wheels. So I was so excited to throw them on the car to see what they look like. And then when we tried to spin it, it wouldn't spin. It turns out, unfortunately, that the e-brake mechanism on the wheel calipers stick about 2 to 3 inches proud of the caliper.
Yeah.
And unfortunately was binding onto the hardware on the work wheels here.
Yeah, we thought about, we can grind down the tips of those bolts a bit, but we still won't have the clearance we need without running a massive wheel spacer, which would have run us into clearance issues even with the fender flares that Ken will be installing in the future. So we thought, rather than hacking up those fender flares, let's just ditch this e-brake cable system.
Right, so this will come off and this will make room for something way cooler. We're talking hydros, bro.
All right, well, with that explanation tackled, I guess it's time to move on to making the hard lines.
Yep.
Where do you want to start there?
So we have to run the hard lines from the split from the flex line and the main brake line going to the back.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a mount here because this axle doesn't have a mount for the C-clip for the flex line. Once we have that installed, we can run the hard lines and that should take care of the rear brakes.
Boom. That was fast.
You know me, chop chop suey. Anyways, we just took some flat steel stock, drilled a hole, and use a C-clip. So now it's on there, and what we're gonna do is find a suitable spot, do a little bit of trimming, tack weld it in, and then that'll keep the flex line locked and not moving around. Then we can run our hard line.
Fitting up nice.
I'll tack it. Hopefully that extension is long enough for the welder, and then we're good to go. So my technique for bending metal hard lines to get a template first, I usually get either a coat wire. In this case, Dave gave me this nice TIG wire that I bent up already. That way we can transfer it to the hard lines without wasting hard lines by making wrong bends and cuts. And now we can transfer it over to the hard lines.
Well, since you're a surgeon, show us how you do this.
So as you can see, I'm laying the template out. You want to start off with one side that has a fitting already, and then we can always cut to length. So you have that fitting marking from there. The first bend will be somewhere over here. It's not an exact science. Maybe it is, but as long as you don't kink it too badly, you should be okay. So first bend, you can see you can always adjust it. So this bend is not, it's right pretty much there. See that?
Yeah,
Look
looking
at that.
good.
Nothing but eyeballs.
All right, keep going, eyeball man.
And also the good thing about this is once you bend the hard lines and you have bolted it, you can actually still bend it while mounted to your wherever it needs to go to. So there's room for adjustment. So usually what I like to do is after you have the rough bend, I secure one end of the actual line to the brake fitting, the flex line at this point, and that way we can make the bends a bit better with this side being secure. So at least we know where one end is. And then we can make the rest of the bends from here and make any adjustments that we need. I know you guys are all pros, but for you guys that haven't done a flare job before, I'm going to show you how to do a simple 45-degree flare. So most of the tools come with this, a clamp. You pick the appropriate side of your tubing. It comes with a fitting, which corresponds to the ID of the tube. And what you do is you put the level of this to the same height as that fitting, as you can see right there. You can see that.
Now what?
Now what? We make sure we tighten the clamp itself around the tube to ensure that the tube does not get pushed down as we're squishing it.
Squishing it, is that the technical term?
That's the technical term. So now compressing it. Now you're going to flip this tube over. You're going to put the little mandrel in there like so. You grab your flare tool. So you're going to position this over the mandrel. Pointy top goes into the little divot there. And you're going to tighten it down nice and slow. No rush, you don't want to crack it. And once the mandrel bottoms out, like hits the actual clamp itself, like so, you can stop, you can back off with the clamp, take off the fitting, the mandrel, and you're going to finish the rest of your flare with this tool. What the heck do you call this thing?
I don't know. The clamp tool.
The clamp tool thingy. Anyways, it's going to further compress and give you
that 45
the
degree
45
flare.
degree flare.
Gotcha.
Double wall. Oh, Speed Academy top tech tip. Make sure your fitting is always there before you start your flares. Ask me how I know that. And there is your flare. Nice and smooth.
So flary.
Now let's see if it fits.
That is the ultimate test. And just like that, hard lines are done.
It's all done. You just got to tighten the fittings and put some P-clips just for that extra peace of mind.
Secure the hard line to the axle
That's right.
in the OE-ish locations.
Oh-ish. We can make our own.
Yeah, it'll be good.
So for those of you that don't know what it looks like underneath, it's a single solid axle, so all these lines pretty much move together. There's only one flexible line that goes from the hard line, from the master cylinder, connects to a flex line to a T up there. So all these will end up moving together. So I mean, yeah, we're putting P fittings just for peace of mind, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't think we really need it, but
Yeah,
I want to get tripped at the internet.
more
for not-
points of security, the better. Rear brakes all buttoned up. Time for a spot of tea, though, before we move on to the next job, which is not going to be pretty. By the way, look at this mug, everybody. Where did you find that fine piece of drinking utensil apparati?
This is what happens when you're a guest tune. When you tune stuff, you get to drink out of this.
It's an honor.
It's an honor.
To drink out of the bad Obsession Motorsports mug.
Yeah, we'll start linishing shortly.
What on earth is happening here? This doesn't look safe. The internet's gonna lose its mind. It's gonna be a full-scale revolt. Oh, there she goes. How much fun was that?
Well, there you go.
11 bolts shortened. And
2 minutes each.
2 minutes per bolt with a Dremel, and not a single scratch on the wheel anywhere. All right, well, let's go do a test fit and see how we're doing for caliper clearance. How good does that look, everybody? It looks good. And the good news is, after Ken's hard work with the Dremel, we have caliper clearance with a 5mm spacer on there. So our friends at Mackin Industries sent us these 5mm thick, either 5x or 4x 114.3, which fits our 4x 114.3 bolt pattern here. You can order these in different thicknesses and so on. So we actually, ironically enough, ordered these for the front of the car, thinking that these wheels weren't going to clear the front brakes, which they do. But we need them in the rear to clear these big wheelwoods in the back. So not 100% sure why they clear the fronts and not the rears. Maybe we need to do more research on how well they clear in the front, but with the 5mm spacer on here, we clear. And without having hacked those bolts off, we would have had to have run a 10mm spacer. So we were just sacking 2 of these to see if we had clearance, which we did. With Ken's Dremel work, we're down to 1 spacer, which is important because of this fender flare. That is a TRD replica fender flare that we got from Toy Sport. Looking at it with the 10mm spacer, we were going to run into interference at the front of the flare here, but I think now we're probably good, don't you think, Ken?
Mm-hmm.
We don't have any ability to add camber in the rear with a solid rear axle, so really we need to get the offset right so that we don't end up having to hack up these flares too much. So I think we've got this sorted out well enough now that we can get on to installing that Hydro Ebrake. But first I gotta get on the internet and order it. And then it should arrive just about... Wow! Just like that, the UPS man arrived with our new Sikky Hydro Ebrake. This is their pull-up style one, sort of bolts down to the tunnel in the OE-ish position. We'll show you that install in a minute. And we went for the pass-through style master cylinder. So the rear brake line will come in to the front side of the master, exit the back side, and go to the rear brakes, so we can lock up the rear brakes by yanking on this big pistol grip. Ken Wagan in the back seat. Just like high school all over again, eh, buddy?
That's right.
So
A lot of drilling too, like in high school.
Drilling in the back seat.
That van's a rock. Don't go a knocking.
So what is the plan here?
So we took apart the Sikky Hydro Ebrake. It makes it easier to mount it, so we're just drilling holes. It looks cute, but it's actually following the transmission tunnel. And this is the location we all decided would work well, because the shifter has to come back a bit, so this is where it's going to be, so it's not obtrusive to the transmission. And drill a few bolts, put a big ass washer in it, then put the master cylinder back, then we can run our hard lines and find out where everything is located and go from there.
While Ken drills some holes in Connie, Pete's been relocating the catch can up here.
That is true. A lot of you said that the routing we had, which was like a dip in the line, we'd have oil collecting in it. So naturally, we believed you and decided to move our catch can to a lower point. So now we have a shorter route and all the oil will always drain downwards. And I quickly just relocated our windshield washer fluid reservoir over to the side here. So I think we're gonna call this done, version 2.
Look at that. Fancy. That's what you call a washer.
That's right.
You decided regular washers weren't good enough for the job?
Yeah, especially if you're going to be putting a lot of load on it, like a lot of stress on it. The tunnel is pretty thin.
Yeah.
So we thought we'd probably just do a sandwich. That way it's going to be that, and it's going to be a whole lot stronger
Yeah.
to have it. So
Beauty.
yeah.
The magical washer you built is
Solid.
super strong.
So now we just got our route from this side, I guess, would be best, huh?
Well-
Now the tricky part is to cut and flare the line while it's still attached to the car, because I think it's going to be more work to detach everything.
Yeah, just do it under the car.
Yeah, I think that's what we're going to do.
That's gonna be fun.
So here I am cutting a fuel line.
I hope not.
It's a hard line going to the brakes. So this will be the start of our first connection. So by basically, once this is cut, the first fitting, the front fitting of the master cylinder will go through here, and then the second fitting on the master will connect further down, and that'll complete the circuit. So now I got the fitting on, the first die, which will start our flare tool flaring. Tightening it till it touches all the way to the clamp.
Wow, we're aggressive.
Right? And now, hopefully, we can tighten this and finish off the flare.
What's this called? An inverted flare?
Inverted flare.
Ooh, that looks pretty good.
Looks pretty good. I'm quite happy with where the connections are underneath, because it's right tucked up here.
Yeah?
So I kind of don't want to drop it any lower.
Yeah, we need good clearance for the drive shaft for sure.
Correct. All right.
Bendy, bendy?
Bendy, bendy. Check back after a few takes when I get it right.
Ooh. So pro.
So I think that worked a bit better.
Yeah.
It's a little bit lower. We are now working on the rear fitting of the master cylinder. That's going to tie in to the actual brake calipers themselves, the hard lines that'll go out to the axles into the calipers.
Via this fancy flex line that I had made at Marcor or M Sport Canada. Gotta have a flex line over that solid rear axle, by the way. This is what lets the axle move up and down without tearing out the hard lines.
Okay, so that's pretty much it. Buttoned up, hard line, and this is the flex line that you saw a few minutes ago. Hooked up to the T, going to our hard lines, to the rear axles attached to the brakes. And with that, short of bleeding the system, I think it's done.
Well, Thank you, Ken Wagan, for all your hard work on this Sikky Hydro Ebrake install. I must say it looks pretty snazzy in here, and although it doesn't have a locking like pin mechanism on it to use it as a parking brake, in a future episode we'll figure that out, because I would like to be able to use it as a parking brake. But in the meantime, I can sit here and dream about clutch kicks and pulling the old hydro and doing skids, even though I'm not building a drift car, I'm just building a fun car. Thanks for watching. As usual, if you like what we do, go check out our e-store, speedacademy.shop, or even better, check out our Patreon page and consider donating $1 or $2 to help us keep this shop going. Just give her. That's old school for send it. Give her. What do you say we bring give her back, Ken? Get rid of this send it garbage.
Yeah.
Did you give her?
I gave her.